My parents said I was selfish for not letting my brother move into my home. Then I opened my laptop and showed them the camera clips of him entering my house while I was at work and taking cash from my desk. When I said the footage was already with the police, the room went dead quiet. The day my parents called me selfish, they had no idea my laptop was about to end the entire conversation. They thought they were walking into an intervention. I already knew it would become evidence. My name is Emily. I am 29, I live alone, and for most of my life my younger brother Jake has been the center of every family problem that somehow becomes everyone else's responsibility, especially mine. The latest problem was simple according to my parents. Jake needed a place to stay and I had a house. What they did not know was that Jake had already been inside my house many times. Just not with my permission. And the reason I knew that was sitting in a folder on my laptop called Camera 3. But that meeting with my parents happened later. The story really started 2 months earlier on a Tuesday evening when I noticed something small missing from my desk. It was about $200 in cash. I keep emergency cash in a wooden tray in the top drawer of my desk. I work from home 2 days a week and sometimes I pay contractors or deliveries in cash, so I usually keep a few hundred there. That Tuesday I opened the drawer and instantly felt something was wrong. I did not count the money every day, but you know how your brain remembers things. The stack was thinner. I checked again. $200 gone. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I used it and forgot. Maybe I moved it somewhere. I checked my purse, my kitchen drawer, the small safe in my closet. Nothing. I told myself it was probably nothing and moved on. 3 days later, another 100 disappeared. That was the moment my brain stopped making excuses. Nobody had keys to my house except 2 people. My parents and my brother. My parents lived 40 minutes away and almost never came over without telling me. Jake lived 10 minutes away and had a long history of borrowing things that mysteriously never returned. Still, I did not want to accuse anyone without proof. So I bought 3 small security cameras online. I did not tell anyone. 1 camera pointed at the front door. 1 covered the hallway. And the third one pointed directly at my desk. I installed them on a Sunday afternoon and connected them to an app on my phone. For the first week nothing happened. The cameras only showed empty rooms and my cat wandering around like he owned the place. Then one Thursday afternoon while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. Front door. I opened the app expecting to see a package delivery. Instead I saw Jake unlocking my door. Not knocking. Not calling. Unlocking. He walked inside like he lived there. I remember sitting at my desk at work just staring at the screen while the video kept playing. He looked around the living room, walked down the hallway and disappeared into my office. Camera 3 switched on. Jake sat in my chair. He opened my desk drawer. He took the stack of cash out and counted it. Then he took 3 bills, folded them and put them in his pocket. Before leaving he closed the drawer like nothing happened. I watched the whole thing twice. Then I saved the clip. That night I did not call him. I did not call my parents either. Instead I started a new folder on my laptop. I named it Jake. Because 1 video was not enough. And I had a feeling it was not the first time he had done this. After the first video I expected to be furious. Instead I felt something colder. For years my brother Jake had created small financial disasters that somehow became everyone else's problem. Lost debit cards. Late rent. Car repairs that appeared out of nowhere. Somehow the solution always involved someone in the family handing him cash. My parents had a phrase they repeated every time. He just needs a little help right now. I sat at my desk that night watching the video again and realized something uncomfortable. Jake did not look nervous when he took the money. He looked comfortable. Like it was routine. So I did not confront him. I did not text him. I did not even move the money from the drawer. Instead I added 2 more cameras. 1 covered the kitchen and the hallway leading to my office. The other watched the back door that connected to the garage. If Jake was going to keep visiting my house, I wanted to see every step. For about a week nothing happened. The cameras mostly captured my cat walking around the house like he paid the mortgage. Then on a Thursday afternoon my phone buzzed again while I was at work. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the app. Jake unlocked my door like he had done it 100 times before. No knocking. No hesitation. He walked inside, closed the door and went straight to the kitchen. He opened my fridge, grabbed a soda and stood there drinking it like he was taking a break at his own house. Then he walked down the hallway and into my office. Camera 3 recorded everything. He sat in my chair. Opened the desk drawer. Pulled out the cash. This time he counted it slower, almost like he was checking how much I had left. Then he took $200, folded the bills and slid them into his pocket. Before leaving he pushed the drawer closed carefully. I watched the whole thing from my office at work and did not move for a while. When I got home that night I checked the drawer. Exactly 200 gone. That clip went into the folder on my laptop. I named the folder Jake. The next visit came 10 days later. Same routine. Same door. Same desk. Another $100. After the fourth video I stopped being surprised when the notification appeared. My phone would buzz and I already knew what I was about to see. Jake entering my house like he lived there. By the end of the month I had 6 clips saved. $900 gone. What made it stranger was that Jake behaved completely normal around me. He sent random messages like nothing was happening. One night he texted me asking if I could loan him $300 because he was behind on a bill. I stared at the message for a long time. The same day he had taken money from my desk. That was when I decided I needed someone else to see the videos. Not my parents. They had defended Jake for years no matter what he did. There were only 2 people in my family who had never done that. My Aunt Linda and my Uncle Mark. The following Sunday I drove to their house with my laptop. I told them I had something strange to show them and we sat at their kitchen table. I played the first clip. Jake unlocking my door. The second clip. Jake taking money. Then the third. Neither of them interrupted the video. When it ended my aunt looked at the screen for a moment and asked one question. How much has he taken? I checked the notes I had been keeping. Just under $1,000. Uncle Mark leaned back in his chair and said something that stuck with me. Your parents will defend him no matter what you show them. He was not angry when he said it. Just certain. Then he asked me if I had saved all the files. I told him every clip was backed up. He nodded slowly. Good. Because when this comes out they are going to say you are exaggerating. We spent the next hour talking about what I should do. Part of me wanted to change the locks and confront Jake immediately. But Uncle Mark had a different idea. Let him keep doing it. Record everything. Build a timeline. Because if Jake had been stealing small amounts like this for years, there was a good chance he had done it to other people too. So that is what I did. I left the cameras running. I kept the cash in the drawer. And I started documenting every single visit. What none of us expected was how comfortable Jake would become. 3 weeks later he did something that made the situation impossible to ignore anymore. 3 weeks after my visit to my aunt and uncle, Jake stopped pretending to be careful. Until then he usually came during the middle of the day when I was at work. The visits were short. 10 minutes at most. In and out. Then one Saturday afternoon I got a notification while I was at the grocery store. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the app while standing in the checkout line. Jake walked into my house. I was not supposed to be home for another hour, but he had no way of knowing that. This time he did not go straight to my office. He walked through the living room first, looked around, then disappeared into the kitchen. Camera 4 showed him opening cabinets. At first I thought he was just looking for food. But he kept checking drawers and shelves like he was searching for something specific. Then he went into my office. Camera 3 turned on. Jake sat in my chair again and opened the desk drawer. He took the cash out like always, counted it and put 3 bills in his pocket. But then something different happened. Instead of closing the drawer and leaving, he pulled the drawer out farther and started digging through the rest of the desk. Old paperwork. Notebooks. A small envelope where I sometimes kept receipts. He was searching. That moment made something clear to me. Jake was no longer just grabbing quick cash. He was looking for anything valuable. I paid for my groceries and drove home slowly while the camera feed kept running on my phone. He eventually left after about 15 minutes. When I got home the house looked normal. The desk drawer was closed. Everything was roughly where it should be. Except the cash was lighter again. That clip went into the folder. The total was now over $1,200. 2 days later something even stranger happened. My parents called. They wanted to come over for dinner later that week. That alone was unusual because they rarely visited my house. Most family dinners happened at their place. During the call my mom casually mentioned something else. Jake might need a place to stay for a while. I did not ask questions yet. I just said we could talk when they came over. After the call I sat there thinking about the timing. Jake had been entering my house regularly for weeks. Now suddenly my parents were preparing the ground for him to move in. That night I called my Aunt Linda again. She listened while I explained what my mom said. Then she asked me a simple question. Does Jake know you have cameras? I told her no. She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. If he does not know, then he probably thinks he can live there and keep doing the same thing. That possibility had not even crossed my mind yet. The next day I checked the camera history again and noticed something new. Jake had come to my house one evening while I was visiting a friend. But this time he was not alone. Another guy was with him. They both walked into my living room like they belonged there. The second guy sat on the couch while Jake went into my office. Camera 3 recorded everything again. Jake opened the drawer. But before taking the money he held the stack up and said something to his friend in the living room. I could not hear the exact words from that camera angle, but the friend laughed. Jake took the cash and walked back out. That was the moment the situation stopped feeling like a family problem. It started feeling like a crime. I saved the clip and drove straight to my aunt and uncle's house that night. When Uncle Mark watched the video with the second guy in my living room, he did not say anything for a long time. Then he looked at me and said something very simple. You need to report this. And that was the first time the word police entered the conversation. When Uncle Mark said I should report it, the room stayed quiet for a while. Nobody rushed the decision. My aunt poured coffee and we watched the clips again, this time in order. Every visit. Every time Jake opened the same drawer. Every time he folded the cash and left like it belonged to him. By the time the last video ended, the total was over $1,500. Uncle Mark finally closed the laptop. You already have more proof than most people ever get. I asked him something that had been bothering me since the first video. What if my parents say I should just forgive him? My aunt answered that one. They will say that. He was not guessing. She knew them. So the next morning I went to the police station. The officer who spoke with me was calm and practical. I showed him several of the clips and explained the timeline. He watched Jake unlock my door, walk into my office and take the cash. He asked one question. Does he have permission to enter your home? I said no. He nodded and took notes. Then he asked if Jake had a key. I told him my parents had given him one years ago in case of emergencies, back when I first bought the house. I had honestly forgotten about it. The officer said something simple. That is still unauthorized entry if you did not allow it. He made copies of the videos and told me an investigator would review everything. It was not dramatic. No sirens. No immediate arrest. Just documentation. Which was exactly what Uncle Mark said I needed. I left the station feeling strangely steady. Not angry. Just finished with pretending the situation was normal. 2 days later my parents came over for dinner. Jake came with them. That alone told me something. My parents had clearly already talked to him about whatever plan they had. Dinner started normal enough. Small talk. My mom asking about work. My dad complaining about traffic like always. Jake acted relaxed like he had never been inside my house without permission. Halfway through the meal my mom finally said what they had come to say. Jake needs somewhere to stay for a while. I did not answer right away. My dad jumped in and explained that Jake had some problems with his landlord and needed a temporary place. Just a couple months. My mom added that I had plenty of space. Jake looked around my house while they talked. It was subtle, but I noticed something strange. He was studying the layout. The hallway. The living room. The door to my office. Like he was already imagining himself living there. I asked one question. Did Jake ask you to talk to me about this? My parents exchanged a quick glance. My dad said they were just trying to help family. Jake finally spoke. It is not a big deal. Just until I get things sorted out. I looked at him for a moment and realized something. He already believed the answer would be yes. Because in his mind, this house was already a place he could enter whenever he wanted. My mom started talking about how selfish it would be to say no when family needed help. That word again. Selfish. I listened for a few minutes while they explained how Jake had always had a rough time and how family should support each other. Finally I stood up and walked to the living room. I brought my laptop back to the table. Nobody seemed worried yet. They probably thought I was going to check my schedule or something practical. I opened the folder. Jake noticed the name first. His face changed slightly when he read it. Jake. I clicked the first video. The room filled with the quiet sound of my front door unlocking. Jake walking inside. No one spoke while the clip played. When it ended I started the second one. Then the third. By the fourth video my mom stopped breathing loudly enough that you could hear it. Jake was completely still in his chair. But the real surprise had not happened yet. Because the investigator from the police station had called me earlier that day with information I had not expected. And I had one more clip ready to play. A clip that showed Jake doing something inside my house that even I had not known about until the police reviewed the footage more closely. The fourth video ended and the room felt smaller. No one spoke for several seconds. The only sound was the quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My parents were staring at the laptop screen like it might suddenly explain itself. Jake had not moved since the first clip started. I opened the next video. This was the one where Jake brought someone with him. The clip showed my front door unlocking. Jake walked in first, then the guy who had been sitting on my couch in the footage Uncle Mark and I had watched earlier. The guy dropped onto my couch like he had been there before. Jake walked down the hallway and into my office. Camera 3 turned on. He opened my desk drawer again. The stack of cash came out. He counted it slowly and said something toward the living room. His friend laughed. My dad leaned closer to the screen. Who's that guy? Jake did not answer. The clip ended. My mom finally turned toward him. What is this, Jake? He shook his head like the whole thing was ridiculous. You are making it look worse than it is. No one responded to that either. I closed the laptop for a moment and looked at all three of them. For years I had watched the same pattern happen in my family. Jake would mess something up, my parents would defend him, and the conversation would somehow shift toward how everyone else should be patient with him. But that pattern was not working tonight. My dad finally asked the question that had been building in the room. Why are you showing us this? I opened the laptop again and said something simple. Because the footage is already with the police. The words landed heavily. My mom froze. Jake leaned back in his chair and stared at me. My dad blinked like he had not heard me correctly. You called the police? Yes. The room went quiet again. I turned the laptop so they could see the screen. There's one more video. This was the clip the investigator had pointed out earlier that afternoon when he called me. It was from a night I had missed while scrolling through the recordings myself. 10:30 at night. Jake unlocking my door again. But this time 2 people followed him inside. The same guy from the earlier clip and another person I had never seen before. They stood in my living room talking quietly for a minute. Then Jake walked straight into my office. My parents watched closely. Jake opened my closet door. That part surprised them because they both knew I rarely kept anything valuable there. But Jake reached up to the top shelf and pulled down a small metal lockbox. It was not a safe. Just a basic box where I kept old documents and emergency cash. Jake shook it slightly and said something toward the living room. Then he carried it out. The 2 other guys looked at it while Jake opened the lid. My mom whispered his name. Jake. The clip ended there. Nobody moved. My dad slowly turned toward him. Tell me you did not take that. Jake rubbed his face and said it was a misunderstanding. My dad did not argue back immediately. He just kept looking at him like he was trying to understand how many things he had ignored over the years. I said something that made the silence even heavier. The investigator already identified the 2 guys who were with him. Jake looked at me quickly. Apparently one of them had been involved in a theft investigation last year. The police had recognized him almost immediately. That detail changed the mood in the room. My parents had spent years convincing themselves that Jake just made bad decisions sometimes. But now there were strangers walking through my house with him. My dad leaned back slowly. How much money? I told them the number. $1,700 in total. Jake spoke fast. I can return it. Nobody answered right away. Then my mom asked the obvious question. From where? Jake did not answer that either. I said something else instead. The police already have the videos and the timeline. The investigator told me the main thing they want right now is documentation and repayment. Jake stared at the table for a long time. Then he nodded. I will pay it back. Not today, but soon. I simply said okay. That dinner ended quietly after that. No yelling. No dramatic scene. Just a strange silence between everyone. Jake left with my parents. 3 days later I found something unexpected in my mailbox. A plain envelope. Inside was $300 in cash. No note. No explanation. Just money. A few days later another envelope appeared. 200 more. Jake had started paying it back. But the most unexpected part of the whole situation happened about a week later. My Aunt Linda called me late one evening. She said someone had contacted her. Another relative. Someone who had recently realized Jake had done something very similar to them. And they had proof too. By the time my Aunt Linda called me that evening, Jake had already started returning the money. It began with an envelope in my mailbox. No name on it. Just my address written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Inside were $300 in cash. No note. No explanation. Just money. 2 days later another envelope appeared. 200 this time. Jake never texted me about it. He never knocked on my door or tried to talk about what happened during that dinner. The envelopes simply started appearing every few days. It was quiet and strangely organized, like he had accepted that there was no way around the situation anymore. When my aunt called she got straight to the point. Your cousin Ryan contacted me. Ryan lives about 3 hours away and we only see each other at bigger family gatherings, so hearing his name connected to this situation caught my attention immediately. What did Jake do there? My aunt sighed. Ryan heard about the situation from someone in the family. Your parents have been calling relatives trying to explain things. I already knew what that meant. They were probably using words like misunderstanding. Ryan had asked my aunt one specific question. Did Jake have access to Emily's house? When she said yes, Ryan told her something interesting. About a year earlier Jake had visited him for a weekend. After Jake left, Ryan noticed $200 missing from a drawer in his home office. At the time Ryan assumed he had misplaced it. He never accused Jake because there was no proof. But after hearing about my videos Ryan remembered something. He had a small hallway camera that he had installed after someone tried to break into his garage the year before. He had completely forgotten about it. So Ryan went back through the recordings from that weekend. And he found Jake walking into his office while everyone else was outside grilling in the backyard. My aunt told me Ryan was not even angry when he explained it. He sounded tired. Apparently he just wanted to confirm whether Jake had done something similar anywhere else. Now he had his answer. My aunt asked me if I wanted to do anything with that information. Report it. Add it to the police file. Confront Jake again. I thought about it for a minute. Then I said no. The situation was already moving in the direction it needed to go. The police had my footage. Jake had clearly realized he could not talk his way out of it. The money was already coming back. Dragging another case into it would only stretch everything out. So I asked her to tell Ryan to keep his video just in case anyone ever needed it. That was enough. Over the next month the envelopes kept arriving. Sometimes $100. Sometimes $200. Once there was even a $50 bill folded between the others, like Jake was just clearing whatever he had in his wallet. He never contacted me about it. But the total slowly dropped. My parents stopped mentioning the idea of Jake moving into my house. That topic disappeared completely after the dinner with the videos. Family gatherings became different after that. Not explosive, just careful. My parents spoke to me politely, but there was always something behind their words. Like they still believed I had crossed a line by going to the police. Jake showed up at a few dinners but kept conversations short. He never brought up the money, the cameras, or that night at my table. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Mark were the only ones who treated everything like it had happened exactly the way it did. One afternoon about 6 weeks after the dinner, I opened my mailbox and saw the last envelope. $200. That was the final amount. I counted it twice at my kitchen table. $1,700 returned in full. No note. No apology. Just the end of the number. A few days later the investigator from the police department called me. He confirmed that the repayment had been documented and asked if I wanted to continue pushing the case. I told him the money had been returned and that was enough for me. He said situations like this often end that way once someone realizes there is real evidence involved. Sometimes proof changes people's behavior faster than arguments ever could. Life eventually settled into something that looked like peace. But it was a very different kind of peace than before. My parents now knock on the door when they visit. Jake never asked for his old key back and I quietly changed the locks anyway. When we all sit in the same room during holidays or family dinners, everyone behaves politely. No arguments. No accusations. Just careful conversations about normal things. But there is always something unspoken sitting quietly in the background. My parents still believe I went too far. Jake believes I betrayed him. And I know something they do not like to admit. For years I tolerated things because it kept the family comfortable. The moment I stopped doing that, the truth became impossible for anyone to ignore. Now everyone in my family understands one very simple thing. If Jake ever walks into my house again without permission, there will not be another quiet envelope in my mailbox. The next conversation will not happen at a dinner table.